Welcome into the Inside Bassmaster Podcast. I'm your host today, Ronnie Moore, and this podcast is brought to you by Black Rifle Coffee Company. We're super excited to partner with them. If you have not gotten in on the opportunity to get a brand new rig, a bass cat boat equipped out with all the tackle you could possibly need, coffee as well that'll last you a lifetime, it seems, get in on the Black Rifle Coffee Company giveaway. You only have a couple more weeks, I believe, to get in on that. The link is in the description of this podcast on YouTube. We hope you guys join in on that. Today, we have the Bassmaster Elite Series Winning Ways show. I wish my guy Kyle Jesse could jump in and co-host with me today, but he is taking a much-needed vacation, so I'm going to let him be and let him soak up the time off with his wife. Get it done, Kyle, because we're going to need you back in the office very soon. But today's edition is going to cover Lay Lake Bassmaster Elite Series event and the Sabine River. Will Davis Jr. winning on his home lake. Brock Mosley getting a long, much-needed and long-awaited victory at the Sabine River. Excited for both of these guys. Different outlooks on the Elite Series, different outlooks on life, and a different path to get to the top level of the sport. So we're going to go ahead and start our podcast off with one and only, I guess not only because he is Will Davis Jr. We're going to have Will Davis Jr. on today to talk about his Lay Lake Bassmaster Elite Series title. We're super excited to be with Will today in what was one of the craziest Elite Series victories we've ever seen, the closest Elite Series title since 2011. Will Davis Jr., welcome into the Inside Bassmaster Podcast. Congratulations. You get to join us on the Winning Ways show because you are the champion of the fifth stop of the season at Lay Lake.
Hey, Ronnie, I appreciate you having me on, man.
Man, I mentioned it in the intro of the podcast. We're without my guy Kyle Jesse today. He really wanted to be a part of this, but he's taking a much-needed vacation, so I'm going to let him keep his feet in the sand, and we're going to talk to you and Brock today in the podcast. Will, just want to go ahead and congratulate you winning on your home lake. I kind of equated it to in studio with Tommy and Davey Height when we were covering the event. I said every single person in the world has dreamed of that scenario. If you're a fisherman, you want to see the best in the world come to your home lake and get the chance to beat them. You had that opportunity. I also equated it to, if you make the game-winning shot in the NBA Finals, I want to do it over Kobe Bryant or LeBron James or Michael Jordan. Like, you want to do it against the best. You got the opportunity, and boy, you cashed in and did it. What's it been like being now Will Davis Bassmaster Elite Series champion versus just Elite Series angler? Has it been everything you thought it'd be?
Absolutely. It comes with a lot of responsibility too, to represent the sport and the way that it should be represented. And also, it makes you more hungry to win another one. And after getting back from St. Clair last week, man, I just has a big kick in the stomach right there. But I'm gonna regroup and get ready for Champlain. But it's definitely been I guess the whole deal was emotional. It was like an emotional roller coaster. It really didn't sink in till I started, getting prepped for the next tournament and all that stuff. That's when it really sank in. But in the moment, it was just so much going on that I really couldn't focus on nothing but the next step. So.
Well, I know that final weigh-in, every single weigh-in, it seemed like it was a couple people there to root on the elites, and then everyone else was there to root on Will Davis. And so it was cool to see your cheering crowd there. That's a question Kyle wanted me to ask you, was that final day weigh-in, the storm that blew through, all the fans just sitting in the rain waiting for, the winning moment. And then for you to be sitting backstage, I know how it is at the tanks. You've got, Christy and in the line with Palaniuk and with you, and you guys are all chatting about your bags. Did it start to hit you back there? Is there anything they said or anything you said where you're like, this is going to be really close kind of deal?
Yeah, in a way, but man, I was just sitting there waiting just to weigh my fish, and I was just kind of, I guess, numb. Like, I really wasn't thinking nothing. I was just ready to get it over with. And after hearing that Brandon had a dead fish, and he told me that he weighed every one of his fish, that it was going to be down to ounces. And basically after that, man, I don't remember nothing besides walking up there and the storm came in, and I was looking down at my wife and little girl, and I was pointing towards the tent because I could see the storm coming. I was like, y'all need to get over there before, something bad happens. So it was a very strange weigh-in, but it was awesome.
So Dave Mercer pulls you up there, and you guys are both just like arm in arm, just hugging each other for a minute. Both Bass Nation champions who have represented well in the Elite Series so far. You guys are connected in that way, but then also just that feeling. I said it's like nothing else in fishing. You can't recreate it in any other format, in any other way. Two guys, one bag of fish on the scales, and it's going to come up with a number, and it may be enough, it may not be enough. That's one of the coolest moments in sports. In that moment, do you even remember, were you looking at the number on the scale, or were you just watching the fish as they were flopping there and waiting for someone to say, hey, you won, celebrate, you kind of thing? Like, there's so many different gauges up there that some people don't even know where to look and at that moment, and they just blank staring.
I'm
What
that
was
guy.
it for you? That was you?
Yeah, I'm that guy. I can't never tell what I have. I'm like staring here, staring there. You see a lot of guys kind of shuffle their head or eyes back and forth. There's two screens up there, and I don't know. It don't help looking from one screen to the other because they're both the same. But I was just standing there, and I had Brandon. Me and him was hugged up and everything, and it was very intense. You couldn't cut it with a knife, or you could have cut it with a knife, because I knew that it was going to be really, really close. And when Dave said whatever the weight was, and Brandon patted me, then that's when I knew, that I won, and I just let it all out then.
And even if Brandon was wrong and he miscalculated and he would have won, hey, you could have been like, hey, he patted me. Brandon said I won. So even if the scales were at something different, Brandon told me I won by patting me. And then you could have maybe swayed Lisa and Dave that way. But one more thing from the weigh-in. You had your family come up on stage, but specifically your dad. As you're Will Davis Jr., he's Will Davis Sr. I'm Ronnie Moore the third, and Ronnie Moore Jr. is my dad. He took me fishing and got me into the sport. That moment when you passed the trophy to your dad and pointed at him like he was the one who just caught 20 of the most important bass of his life, what was going through your head pointing it at him, and then also the meaning of that, getting that trophy for your dad because of everything that he had helped you with up to that point?
So it's so many years of sacrifice from him and my mom, and through his business, and leaving a job when I was 5 years old to spend more time with me to start his own business and to grow me up in the tournament world and all that. When I got that trophy, he deserved it, more than I did, because I would not have been there without him. And I wanted him to feel just as special as I did.
That's pretty awesome. I know I'm an emotional person for the most part, whether it's getting super excited or getting super emotional. And so I know I was shedding a tear at that weigh-in, just sharing that moment with your family. It's pretty cool. Now we get to the water. Let's just talk about fishing. There's a lot of locals. Normally you have one or two guys that could consider being a local at a lake. And I'd say, you probably had 6 to 8, 6 to 9 that had tangible experience, plenty of times fishing Lay Lake. You obviously one of the most fresh guys other than like, David Gaston, Josh Stracener, like guys who are new to the elites, because you guys get to fish a lot around home. What was your approach going into practice for Lay Lake? Because sometimes locals mess themselves up because they rely on history too much. Sometimes they don't rely on history and they try to fish it brand new. How did you balance that?
Being from around here and the success that I've had the past 5 or 6, 7 years on that lake, this time of year or that time of year in May, I narrow it down by the success I got. I keep a diary. I always have. I write in it water temperature, moon, the whole 9 yards. What I eat for breakfast? No, I didn't put that in there. But basically, that's what a fisherman does. And I flipped back through there just to make sure I wasn't second guessing myself. And it's just easy to let stuff creep into your mind, especially at your home lake, because the grass is always greener over there, yada yada yada. So I knew going into this tournament that I had 3 places where I knew if I was going to win, that's where it's going to go down. And the only place that I practiced on, where I caught them, was I went in that creek to find the bedding fish. And when I found them fish, they really wasn't giants. And we'll get to that here in a second. But with that being said, I didn't practice at the dam. I didn't practice on the shad spawn fish. I pull up there and look and see if it was, the activity was going on. Never made a cast in there. So I just knew I never fished a spook spot in the practice because I didn't want no guy seeing me on it. And I knew if I did or they see me on it, it wasn't going to turn out good. So I just kind of played defense in practice, besides looking for the bedding fish and the shad spawn fish. So that's kind of my approach to it.
Yeah, because you had a couple things going there. We luckily had you on day 1. We didn't see you day 2, and then we saw you day 3 and 4. We got to see you go into that creek, catch some sight fish, which were crucial to your day 1 limit early. And then we saw you have that school and fish area where you were able to double up and then lose one of them at the boat or whatever, and you landed one of them. That was a different kind of pattern. We saw you up at the tail race as close, to the dam as you can get, and then farther back away as well. And then we also saw that final day, that other creek. I don't exactly know where you were because there was just the producer we were doing. So I'll tell you the truth on this. We always do a wrap up. As soon as Bassmaster Live ends, we do a wrap up of whoever we think is leading. If we think 1 or 2 guys are there for the title, we do 2 wrap ups just in case one of them wins and the other doesn't, whatever. So we do our winner wrap ups. At the point of the show ending, we were convinced Palaniuk won. While we're doing our wrap up of Palaniuk winning, you catch the fish that you hook in your hand. And we were like, oh my gosh, like, we need to do a wrap up for Will Davis. He might win this tournament. And then you ended up winning it. So that area where you caught those last 2 fish, the one that in your hand, and then I believe there was a second one, that was also another area. So we saw you on camera a couple days in 4, 5, 6 different areas, swim jigging, sight fishing, top water, everything. So did you kind of have this, I'm going to burn these things early in the tournament because they might not be there for the weekend?
Absolutely. Yeah, I knew that the fish that was closer to takeoff was going to get more pressure going into especially Friday and sure enough Saturday. So I try to utilize that pattern to get my weight the first 2 days, but I would get that early, and then I knew that I could go up that river to the dam and catch at least a couple 3-pounders, and end up catching more than a couple 2-pounders. So, but the key about that whole issue was it was weird how they was running the water that week.
Or
That
not
time of year,
running
most
water?
time they always run, or not. That's right. But that week they had 1 turbine on every day, 24/7 or 24 hours a day. But the first day and the second day they turned 2 turbines on later in the day, and just knowing that area, knowing where they go when they turn them 2 turbines on. It takes an hour for them fish to position where you want them when they turn them 2 turbines on. So knowing that, and just like one time, I went back and watched my live when I was coming home from a trip, and Davey said something. I think it was one of y'all guys asked Davey, "Do you prefer to sit close to the bank like that and let them fish, present the bait the way that it, more natural to them?" And I was thinking, what I was doing is I was just hanging out, just guarding a hole until an hour passed. I sat there for a whole hour, just goofing off, because there's nothing. I mean, it takes about an hour for the fish to get positioned right. So having that local knowledge and spending so much time up there definitely played in my deal.
Well, something Kyle always asks is the bait talk. He obviously contributes to the website content of the magazines and other things as well. So he's always about the baits. You got to do a couple tackle tips with us and other things about that. So break down not only just the shaky head and the shaky fish, but just why that shaky fish became a deal. Like you could throw a ball head swim bait, you could throw anything else that resembles it, but why is that starting to be a trend again?
The traditional, I guess, swim bait on a ball head, whether it be a 1/4 ounce, 1/2 ounce, 3/4, whatever, however fast the current is or how deep it is, you hang that a lot. especially up towards tail races. And then fish sit so precise right behind a rock that you have to deflect it off that rock for them to, to get their attention. Because it's not like up north where it's super clear. So they know that's where they live, and they know when something's, not when it's feeding time around that rock, because they hear it, they feel the vibration, whatever. So with that shaky fish, the way that the bill material or the bill is designed on that head, it deflects off them rocks. I'm not saying you don't hang it, but you don't hang it up near as much as a traditional swim bait. So that was real crucial, is not hanging up, because once you hang up, you have to break it off and so on and so forth. But yep, I call it a square bill in the current. That's what I call it. So,
Well, it definitely was key, and you caught I think spotted bass on it. You might have caught some largemouth as well. But what was your 20 fish? The ones that you weighed in. How many largemouth did you have? How many spotted bass? Because that was kind of a debate as well. Will we see mixed bags win it? Will we see an all largemouth guy win it, or could a guy with all spotted bass be able to win this event?
right. I think I weighed in 15 spots and 5 largemouth. I think that's what I've done.
And
Yeah.
I think if that's the case, then you caught most of those largemouth day one, and then you caught those two at the end of the day, that in that secret or that special spot. And so speaking of that special spot, did you save that for after you left the tail races? Because you were there for most of Sunday. You leave the tail races and then you go there. We don't see you for an hour, and then we see you start popping up in that area. You catch that fish that you had been working on for a little bit. Then you catch a second one. That place looked different. Is it far from the tail race? Was it a place that was just a 1 or 2 fish place and you were just giving it a try, a Hail Mary? Or what was your game plan with that once you left the dam on that final day?
So I knew that the tail race has done, I done picked it for all it's worth. And I know that area pretty well, fishing it for many years, and I've done hit everything. I done exhausted it. So I had this one place down the lake, probably about 7 or 8 miles from there. And the first day, Mark Menendez stayed with me here at my parents' or right across the driveway at my parents' house. They live like 100 feet from me. So Mark stayed there, and we shared my boat shed and all that stuff throughout the week. So me and him roomed together on the road and all that stuff.
Oh,
So
cool.
he told me that if he saw me anywhere that I was going to fish in the tournament, he finds out about it, he's going to shove them rods, where. And I was like, all right. So after practice, the first day, he comes in, he's like, man, if this tournament was tomorrow, I'd win it. I said, oh, really? Was you such and such? I don't know. Did you go up under this? And he's like, yeah. I said, well, that's one of the places I was saving. And his eyeballs just got big. And he was like, you just see, like, I just sucked the wind out of his sail. So I was like, dadgummit. And it sucked the wind out of my sails too. Because
One
he's like,
day and he
I
found
seen,
it. Yeah.
yep. He said, I seen such and such. He was like, there's 4 boats in there. I was like, oh, gosh. So with that being said, second day, I said, the heck with it. So I'd go up there, I let the sun get high, go in there, and I don't see nothing. I mean, I see one like 7 or 8 pounds, but you can't catch them fish. They're just cruising. They're just going from A to B to B to A, and they're just, unless they're locked on the bed and you just happen to get there when they're hungry enough to eat, you're not going to catch them. I've never been able to do it. So with that being said, I find a 3-pounder, 2-pounder on bed, and then I find one close to 4 on bed. And I noticed on the corner of her, I guess her film around her eye was solid white. So I nicknamed her Whitey. So Mark goes in there. I never hit it throughout the whole tournament to the last day. And I talked to Mark before I weighed in, before the I guess the weigh-in finished. I talked to him. I said, you go in such and such? He said, yeah. I said, see one in there on the right in there? He's like, yeah. So I said, does she have a white patch on her eye or whatever? He said, yeah. He said, I fished for her for 45 minutes and couldn't make her bite. I was like, all right. So I kept that in the back of my mind. So after leaving the tail race, and I did not have a good morning, I saved some brush piles and yada, yada, yada. It never panned out. There wasn't nothing working. So I just kept my composure and just started running my milk run and caught a couple here, caught one off one rock, one off another rock, and caught that swimming jig fish real early that morning. So, and I caught a dink. So I had 4 fish, and it was like 1:30, and it's like 30 minutes from up there that I had to run back to the weigh-in. So I didn't have long to fish, like 45 minutes. I go in there, and when I pull in this creek, there's a big stump on the right, and there was probably, I don't know, a 2.5 pounder that was bedding, and I flip, 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 flip. Finally, foul hook her on accident. She kept on rushing the bait, so I had to turn her back. No biggie. I knew it wasn't big enough to help me win, so I really didn't get down on myself. So I go up in the creek a little bit further, and the camera guys, what's the one guy that shoots all the
Sego?
pictures? That's Sago. He was in there, and he finally left. Well, I go back in there, and when I get in there, I'm looking, and there's this new fish that pulled up, and I know she's new. One, she wasn't in there when I went in there and practiced, and she's pale looking. She was a one just freshly off the river. So I fished for her, and I was like, oh my goodness, she's a good one. And I was like, she ain't biting nothing. I done pulled out all the tricks, that I thought of at the time. So I was like, all right. Well, I had a jerk bait tied on, a Spro jerk bait. I throw it up there. It was a deep jerk bait where I've been fishing some rocks with it. I throw it up there, and I, get it probably 4 foot from her. She rushes it. Well, the deep diver that I had was digging in the dirt, so it wouldn't do no good. So, and I didn't plan on doing this to start off with. So I get in my box, and I get a long A jerk bait out, floater. Well, then I had to change the hooks out, put Gamakatsu Magic Eye on there. They're number 4 out, and they are sharp. You can look at them, they're sticky. So I put it on there, I throw up there, and I catch her. And let me start a little bit before that. Before I get to that fish, go to that little place, Whitey was up there, but she swam off when I put my Raptors down. She swam off and didn't come back up there. I was like, what in the world? So I just went on in there because I knew I was going in there for that fish. So I went in there, gonna go to the end of the creek and come back and see if she was there. So when I leave her and go up in there, that new fish pulled up in there, and that's when I pulled out that jerk bait, and then I changed to the long A floater. Well, I threw it up there, and you have to lead them a little bit because if I fouled hooked her, I had to turn her back. So I throw it up there and let it float until she swims about 3 foot from her. I jerk it down, and she would just come over and try to mouth it. About 2 casts, she done that. Well, I didn't have the right angle on her. So I kind of positioned myself, turned the boat a little bit, and made it come more like straight down in front of her like this instead of away from her. So when I done that, I was sitting there, she comes over there, and that's the one where you see she's just up there doing this right here. And I jerk it one time, she comes over and I'm talking about T-bones it. I'm like, It's like, don't you come off. Well, I get down the bottom boat, you know how them pros do, they get down the bottom boat, showing it off. And I get down there, and I'm like this right here, and I get it over there. Well, she jumps over my hand, move my rod this way. She comes around. I reach down to just, grab her up on her. Well, my thumb is right there, and she shakes her head like that, and the back hook, because the middle hook was stuck right inside of her mouth up in there. That back hook it hit my thumb, and it was over with. And I was like, oh my gosh. Reach down and grab her, and I have her between my legs. I get it off and put the fish in there, and I'm like, you know how to get them out? And
Jake was like,
said,
I've never done it before.
Jake said, oh yeah, I know how to get them out. I was like, cool, dude. This is, it's gonna be all right, So when I do all that, I'm taking all the split rings off and everything. And he says, I said, all right, you gonna help me get this? I said, yeah, let me look this up on YouTube. And I was like, oh no. I was like, no. But man, that's when it hit me like, this ain't good. And it was a number 4 alt Gamakatsu Magic Eye, and they're short shanks, so there's no way in the way that it's in there. I can feel the point on my thumb, inside my thumb right there. And he's like, got some ice? I said, yeah. And he's like, you want to push it through, man? I'm like, oh, Lord. I said, yep.
Gee whiz.
I ain't got no choice. So I grabbed my hoodie out and bite down on it after I've numbed it for 10 minutes now. And I finally get it through there. Well, he's like, you got some dikes or cutters? And I'm like, man, all I got is these pliers, and that's all I got. Well, the way that the pliers I had, I couldn't get it close enough. I could cut it right there at the barb where the barb point comes back out, like the thickest part of the barb. So I left like just a hair bit of the barb. So I couldn't get it no further. I said, dude, I said, I got to go out and find somebody. I said, I ain't got no choice. I said, we can't rip it out and I can't cast. And so while we're idling out, and this is a God thing that's about to take place. And my mom, she prayed all week. My whole family prayed, my wife, my dad, for this dream to come true for me. And now I'm staring down, a dark road with a hook in my hand. And I know that I'm around the winning fish.
Yeah, and time's running down.
With time running out. So as I'm idling out of this creek, I'm praying to God, just let me find somebody soon. And I ain't got but 30 minutes to fish. And it takes 5 to 7 minutes to get out from where I'm at to the mouth of the creek. So with that being said, even if somebody's out there to get back in there and fish, I got 10 minutes. While I'm idling out, or right before I crank up the motor, because I turn the boat, and when I come out, I just look over like that right there, and there's Whitey. She is then pulled up, and she is like perfect on the bed. I'm like, man. So I'm idling out to there, and I get out the mouth of this pocket or creek, and this guy just I said, sir, I said, do you have a pair of cutters with you? And he said, he just pointed down to the floor, and he grabs a pair of dikes out of his cup holder, throws it to Jake. Jake cuts it. I back it back out. I give it to him, and I feel bad. I can't remember his first name or his whole name. I said, do you have a phone with you? He said, I do. I said, well, here's my number. Call me this evening, and I'm going to take care of you. And he said, I appreciate it. It'll be under Whitey. That's my name, or my nickname.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, I just get cold chills just thinking about it.
I got to go back and fish for that fish now.
So I go in there, I grab a brand new hook, I put it on there. I get right up there, and Whitey's sitting perfect right against the bank. Second cast up there, she T-bones it. I catch her, cull out my 11-incher, 11-ouncer, and then it just hit me, that I have a shot. But God had His hands in that the whole tournament, so very special, very, very special.
That's absolutely incredible storytelling there. I'm actually in the process. Our fans have asked for this, and Fox Sports 1 has been great. They give us like 14 shows or 10 hours worth of TV shows from January until the season starts in February. And we always do recaps of the year before, but we normally just do the winter piece. Well, we're doing the old school 45-minute TV show where 8-9 anglers, and we play the whole tournament out. And so I'm in the process of editing the Lay Lake show. And so I'm getting to the point of the final day where you're about to go and make your move and stuff. And so that should be finished up soon. We'll be able to have it out in the fall to be able to air in January. So I look forward for you seeing it, and if it tells the story good enough. But that's absolutely phenomenal. What has it been like being the hometown guy or one of the hometown guys since that victory? On the national level, you've got that's a huge thing for your name, but on a local level, all the people rooting for you, all of your, honestly, your biggest rivals, whether they're just spiteful or not, they may look at you and be like, you know what, I'm actually proud of you. You beat these elite boys, and you win on your home lake. That's what we all want to do. Congrats. Has it been that well received around Sylacauga and Shelby County and Lay Lake?
Right. Yeah, and no, and I don't look at it that way. I'm just an old country boy that grew up fishing around here with all these hammers, and they're good enough to be on the Elite Series. A lot of them guys are. and I'm no better than them. God showed me some love and got me where I'm at, and I got the win, and just very grateful for that. So I'm just a humbled human being, because if you're not humbled, this sport will definitely humble you for you. That was proven last week with a 96 or 94 finish at St. Clair. So
That's very
you don't
true.
let your highs you don't get your highs too high and your lows too low. You take what you work for. Um, it's been it's been good around here. All the guys congratulated me, even guys that I didn't know I had buddies. So it was definitely a awesome deal for sure.
That's awesome. Last thing, did it, obviously you're on the Elite Series, you qualified and deserved to make it, and you have guaranteed 2 years before, you have to worry about requalifying or staying good on the Elites, things like that. But was that a moment for you where you were like, I belong here kind of thing? Or did you feel that prior, leading day one at Seminole, having a great finish at Okeechobee? Like, when did they maybe click in for you that, like, I shouldn't be so shy with myself on my ability? Like, God has me here in this position, and I think I can actually hang here, for most of the season. I may have a low here and there, but like, this is what I'm made to do.
Yeah, one of my good buddies, his name is Shane Underwood, and I'll never forget it. After I won the regional at Smith Lake, he told me, he said, "Man, I know you like to quail hunt and everything, but that's not your calling." He said, "Fishing for a living is your calling." I'll never forget that, and it didn't sink in until actually about the first 50, 60 minutes of my first morning at Okeechobee, when I had like 17, 18 pounds. And then go to Seminole and have a good first day, not a good second day and then have Lake Lake on the schedule, qualifying for that before I qualified for the Elite Series. So it's definitely a God thing for sure. And I think I'm where I need to be. I think I'm where I need to be, and I hope that I have some more good tournaments. And you're not going to always catch them. There's no way that you're always going to catch them. And my dad told me that a long time ago. And I'm very competitive, and I kind of, I guess, soak in the hard times there for a little bit, just to get down to where I need to be, and then I start building back up real quick, like. But it helps you appreciate it more when you do good, uh, when you do bad, if that makes sense. So
For sure. Well, he probably taught you that in Cedar Creek when you were barely learning to walk, probably just based on when you were talking about getting the opportunity to be at Lay Lake such a young age. Will, I appreciate you joining me on the podcast today. I know Kyle is going to regret missing this one, but we'll have to make good. Maybe you'll just win Champlain or St. Lawrence, and we'll be able to do another one of these winning ways after the season ends as well.
all right, Ronnie, I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Will Davis Jr., Bassmaster Elite Series champion. We can say that now. Glad to have him on the Bassmaster podcast today. And coming up, another guy that really, it's well-earned, well-deserved, and a long time coming. Brock Mosley, great work ethic, former college baseball player, former angler at Ole Miss. He's a guy who's had an up and down career, but man, he's been so close to that top level. Finally getting an Elite Series win at the Sabine River to get his first career title. I know that's the first of many more in the future for him, and the same for Will Davis as well. So as promised, Brock Mosley, our guest today, to end out our winning ways section of the broadcast. We've gone through the beginning of the season with Rivette and Cifuentes, then we had Benton and Palmer, and now in this episode we have Will Davis and Brock Mosley. Brock, obviously going into this stretch of the season, Lay Lake, the Sabine River, of all of our schedule, those two were the big question marks for a lot of anglers. They were worrisome. They weren't going to be easy events. They're going to be grinders. But did you feel confident? Obviously, that's your style and where you grew up in Mississippi. You probably felt a lot more confident than most guys did going to those two stops, knowing that they were going to be a little tough.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't have a whole lot of experience on lay. It's probably the least fished Coosa River Lake I've been to for myself, but didn't know a whole lot about it. But I kind of, I knew enough to what should go down or what, how to kind of approach it. And I I just kind of tried to make something work too long on day one. It didn't work. And then, kind of dug myself in a hole on that one. And then, of course, on Sabine, I enjoy going to Sabine every year. The people of Orange are awesome. They treat us like, we're rock stars the whole week. Staying with the host family pretty much. They took care of us. They cooked for us. It's just always fun to go to Orange. The fishing may not be the best, but, as you've seen, I caught a bunch of fish. You catch a bunch of fish there, to just, it's all about finding that little better quality. And, but just having that mental aspect, that, hey, it's going to take, 11, 12 pounds a day, and each day that's just one bite that can get you there in a hurry. So that's just what I grew up doing, and I'm real comfortable doing it.
Well, let's go through your history a little bit at the Sabine River. I think you've been there 3 times, and 2 of them are top 12s, and then you got your victory, obviously. So never worse than 12th of your 3 Elite Series events. When you went to Houston in 2021 and you decided to do that for a few days before coming back towards Orange and fishing around there, I think that was the same year you also got stuck at a boat ramp super far north of takeoff where you were. So like, you were stretching yourself thin with practice. How do you go about breaking that down? Because as the crow flies, I mean, it might be 100, 150 miles from one spot to another, but river wise, it's a couple hours sometimes from spot to spot.
That year we had a extra day of practice. We had 4 days of practice rather than 3 because of the counties. We got some more counties added to the list that wasn't in time to pre-fish, so they gave us an extra day of practice. So that year I tried to break down every section, or I spent a different day, every day of practice spent in a different area. And what I do when I go to these, like Sabine especially, I weigh fish there every day in practice, and I want to see where I catch the better quality. Not generally like a spot, but just in that general area. And that's what I was trying to do that year, was spend I had spend a day in Houston, a day in Taylor's, and day around the launch. And I wanted to go way up to Sabine. Actually, I've never been up to Sabine, and it's a public ramp way up there, and it was they haven't cleaned it off since the last flood of sand. And I thought I could make it work, and ended up getting stuck and it was kind of funny. It was a long deal to get that thing out, but ended up letting me know not to go up to Sabine that year, even though Jason won up there.
That's very interesting. And then the year prior, I think your first time going to the Sabine, you had like 2 pounds or something very minuscule on day 1, and then had such a huge comeback on day 2. And then you stayed in the top 10, top 12 the rest of the week there. What was your first experience at the Sabine? Have you pre-fished it every time we've been there, or was it your first time going there that you just kind of saw it for the first time and just tried to flow with it?
This year was actually the very first time I did not go pre-fish. I actually went there. I think COVID or something kind of kept us from going one year, and I was actually there pre-fishing when we couldn't, when we found out we weren't going. And so I've spent, some time there. The very first year we went, I tried to do the same exact thing I did this time around. Start close to the ramp, catch, 7 or 8 pounds, and then run to Taylor's to try to catch a big one. It was kind of a different deal, but I was catching them on the frog that year in Taylor's, and that was where I got all my big bites in practice. So the first day of the tournament that year that you said I had, 2 or 3 fish and was in 90-something place, I stayed around the ramp till 10 o'clock, never had a bite. And then I kind of dug myself in a hole. And then the second day I was like, screw it, going to Taylor's, going to spend the entire day. And I ended up catching 1 over 6 and another one almost 5 pounds in the same day. And then bounced 90 places all the way in the top 10. And, it's just, that place has been good to me. And I wish we could go every year, but at least I did make a cut, and then we could kind of skip a year or 2, but it's a fun place. It's interesting.
It definitely has paid off for you. Now let's bring it to 2023. You finally get your Elite Series title. I was just before you joined in, I was talking about, going from Will Davis. He's a rookie. It's his first year. He wins at home. That's always something what somebody dreams of doing. And then I was talking about how you had been on a short list of anglers that have been so close, that deserved wins. You've heard it so many times. And you kind of displayed that at the weigh-ins where you were almost tired of saying sorry to your wife, that you didn't get it done, and finishing second a couple times. Did you feel like the Sabine you're going to be your best shot for a win? When you see the schedule at the beginning of the year, people would love to win all 9 of them. But when you look at the Sabine and you see that on the schedule, that's got to be comfortable for you in terms of like, hey, this is one I know what it takes to win here. I just have to make the right decisions this week. And obviously you found a right area near takeoff, and then you balance the tailors and staying close well this year.
What you never feel like when the schedule comes out, oh, I could win that one. That never happens. It's more or less like, okay, I feel comfortable here, feel like I'm pretty confident I can get a check here. You always got 5 or 6 like that, and you always got, 2 or 3 or 4 that you're like, oh man, and I don't have a good track record there. But no, you never feel like you're going to win. I actually, like I said, I didn't have a great practice, so to speak. But something hit me when I was running back from Taylor's on day 2. I only had like 11 pounds, and but I had, right at 10 the first day, and I knew I was going to be in the mix. I figured somebody that caught one of the bigger stringers the first day, they usually back it up with 10 or 11 pounds like me and Jason did a couple years ago. I didn't feel like I was going to be leading, but something hit me running back, and I was like, you know what? I got 2 really good deals figured out. I feel like I could win this thing. And, I've never really felt like that before, so to speak, during the tournament. So, it was just one of them deals where, it kind of just, it all played into my hands, and then I start the third morning, I ended up leading after day 2, which I told you, I didn't expect to.
We actually saw you, Kyle, we were doing a podcast like live each day from the weigh-in, and you jumped in over Kyle's shoulder on day 2 when you had just taken the lead. And I was like, there's your leader for day 2. Maybe we'll see him through the rest of the week. And little did we know 2 days later you would win the event. So it was cool to see you in the moment, just like living it, wanting to be with the fans, wanting to enjoy your time there. And then, a couple days later, it worked out the way it did.
Yeah, and that's one reason why the emotion probably come out a little too strong when I caught, the big fish on day 3. I knew if I was already leading, I was like, yeah, it's over now. I knew whoever caught the big one over the final 2 days was going to win. And, that was by far the biggest fish I had caught the entire week. And I just felt like it was my time.
So obviously everyone can see the place close to the ramp, for the most part, and say, oh, it was a release fish area. It was all this or that. But I remember, I think it was day 3, maybe it was day 4 morning. You were catching, we saw 35 or 40 catches in that general region in the first 30 minutes of the day. Like everybody was catching them so fast. And you had mentioned these fish have clean mouths. Like these fish haven't been caught. Like, so can you explain that area? Obviously, if we go back there, it's going to be a place people fish, but it may change, and it may be north of the ramp a little bit. It may be straight across from the ramp. It may be in that same area. Who knows? But why in the world did that stretch of the river just gather so many fish on what is probably similar cover, maybe down the river another mile? There's still the same kind of cover.
After winning, we had a little celebration down there. We were staying with Tyler Rivette's family, and they're from there, and they had a bunch of people come, and talking to some guys that fish their Tuesday night tournaments. They say, I can't even recall the guy's name. He said, hey, so-and-so is going to be pissed because he goes in there every Tuesday night. And if it's ever tough on the Louisiana side, he always wins. He always comes back with 3 for 7 or 8 pounds, and he'll win. But he said, you can always guarantee he's going to have 3 for, 7 to 8 pounds. And the ones I was catching, I even told Zona, before day 1 and after day 1 and day 2, I was like, dude, I think these are retreads from last time we were here, because none of them are scarred up or beat up. I mean, none of them had sore mouths. And, that was the only thing I could think of for me to be catching that many every day, that, it just seemed like I never really ran out of fish.
Kyle Jesse can't join us today. He's soaking up some much needed time off. I'm glad that he's actually getting a break away from it, shortly after just covering Lake St. Clair. But he would always ask, and so I'm going to do it on his behalf, the baits that you won on. Obviously, we saw you using a different approach down in Taylor's where it was mostly flipping, maybe some moving stuff, but you were focusing on a different kind of structure. And then when you were near the ramp in Orange, you had that two-prong approach. You know, you had your pop bar on top, and then you had the, I guess, what you would call probably power shotting a Senko. Tell me about why you didn't just flip a Senko and you decided to power shot it. And then also when that topwater bite, obviously it's June or it's summertime in Sabine, so you can guarantee there is one, but it seemed like they were biting that better than other topwaters for people.
You know, it's just one of them things that we picked up over the years from going there, just like the Pop-R, you know, that's just one of the things we always throw there. You know, if you remember several years ago, it was the year Hackney won that Swindle almost made a comeback and he was catching most of his on a Pop-R. It's just kind of something you pick up, you know, from other anglers. And I was actually catching them flipping in Taylor's and on the power shot close to the ramp with the same 4-inch Senko. And Hank is really the one that told me about the power shot. He was flipping a power shot just so he could keep his bait off the bottom out of the mud. So that's kind of where that come from. I didn't come up with that on my own. And, you know, that stuff I was fishing around was real gnarly, man. It's real rusted, real sharp edges. So I didn't want to throw just your typical drop shot, you know, with light line. I wanted some beefier line, and it helped me a lot. And I ended up still breaking, you know, 3 or 4 off because it would get me caught around that sharp edge. So the power shot, you know, it all come from Hank.
Well, that's pretty cool. Obviously, that every house works together, and for the most part to different extents. But it seems like this year for the 3 of y'all, it's working out well with 2 of you guys getting wins, and Hank's having a good season. He's just a few points out of the classic cut line right now and fishing well. So it's cool to see that. But I want to know also about a little bit of teamwork / gamesmanship / respect, where you talked to me on the phone. I think I called you after day 2 or day 3. I think it was day 3. Or no, I called you after day 2. We were chit-chatting because you had another good day and you took the lead. And you had talked about how you may have to share that area with people. You're starting to realize that there was going to be people in that area not far from takeoff. Tell me about that conversation, if you don't mind, that you had with Matty Wong or parts of it, and then what you saw from him on the water that day 3, which obviously was when you caught your big one. Just how either common that is in the sport to have those conversations, or how it doesn't always go the way the conversation should.
Well, I mean, you know, I had those areas to myself the first morning and second morning. And second morning, I got a full-time videographer, and he was in another boat. And plus Seiko was following me around, and they can bounce for it. I caught them pretty quick the second morning. I had, you know, all 2 to 2.5 pounders by 8 o'clock. And I was like, man, there's no sense of me staying here. I'm going to get out of here. And there was, you know, nobody else in sight. Didn't want to be seen in there. That's, you know, what it boils down to.
Point blank.
Yeah. And, you know, I get back that evening, and, you know, Tyler knows where I was at. And he's like, man, I'm pretty sure I seen Matty Wong fishing in there this afternoon, and maybe even where he caught him. And, you know, I reached out to him, and I was like, and I asked him, you know, he said, yeah. And I was like, man, just, you know, out of respect of the leader, can you let me get just first opportunity at it? You know, because I've been in the same situation. I actually can go back to my rookie year on day 3 at Lake Wheeler. I was sharing that area with David Lefebvre, and I just didn't I just completely wrote it off. I didn't even go back on day 3.
I was there covering Dave. I saw an angler not do that, and there was a big disagreement that happened day 3. I remember being there.
Yeah. And he asked me at weigh-in, man, where were you today? And I was like, dude, I didn't want to be the reason you didn't win $100,000, you know, or a life-changing event. And he's like, you know what, you got really good parents, because, you know, not everybody would do that. And I just kind of treat everybody the way I'd want to be treated. But, you know, it just Matt didn't want to. I mean, you could tell, and nobody would want to. But, you know, he gave me first opportunity at it, and then, you know, he ended up, you know, we got along real good on day 3. And, you know, he's in a tough position. You know, he's trying to make sure he don't get cut off the elites. And so I understood, you know, I just told him, I was like, I just want first opportunity. But it all worked out. It worked out for both of us. He got, you know, a whole bunch of points, and, you know, I got a win.
Yeah, and obviously the way you guys talk to each other on the water, you gave a lot of kudos to that. That was one thing fans kept noticing, was that it was respectful on his part, but that it was respectful for you to at least acknowledge that, hey, not everybody would say yes, and they would race you to it, and then when you compete on the spot, neither one's going to work well. Like you both would bomb it. It wouldn't work out. So good to see that happen. But now that you have the trophy, it's been a month or two since your win. What's it been like? Was it everything you had hoped for in the immediacy of winning it on stage with that crowd out there? All those different pictures. I cry every single time we have a Bassmaster Classic winner, because I visualize so strongly what it would be like to pull in the arena, get on the stage and look out at the crowd and have the winning bag and hold the trophy. So I know on an elite level, to do that in front of a huge crowd, did it match up to everything you had hoped for all those other times of coming up close?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was pretty amazing. I had this, what really, I didn't really know I would have was the support from the industry and, all of the other anglers, everybody wanted to see me win. And, it was a good thing we had that 6-week break, and then to win the one, but going into ICAST is kind of still fresh on everybody's memory. It was just real good. I got to, enjoy it, all the way through ICAST. And, but, coming up close so many times, it was fun to celebrate with the people of Orange and everybody that was there to support me. And I think I went to bed smiling that night. But I always tell people, I heard Nick Saban say one time he enjoys the national championship for one day and then he's back to work on the next one. And it's good. I'm not as Tyler and Hank and Brad all said this past week at St. Clair, like, man, you're kind of more chill this week. You're not like, they were giving me a hard time because I wasn't on the water at daylight, but I mean, it's daylight for 16 hours a day up there. I mean, there's only so much a man can do physically. And I was like, man, they're giving me a hard time winning, saying, oh man, you're going weak now. I was like, oh no, I ain't going weak. I'm just maybe not as hungry as I was, but I'm still pretty hungry.
And I think that there something remains to be seen about that. Joey Cifuentes in his rookie year, he's obviously fished on a top tour level years prior, but still relatively young to the game from the front of the boat. And he wins 2 of his first 7 events. You see guys get on a roll like that. Sometimes it's just natural the way it happens, but like you've always said, like you're a hard worker, like you put in a lot of time. And so you don't see a win coming, but you know how much work it takes to get a win. And sometimes it is draining. But do you think we're gonna have to wait a while for Brock to get another win? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not, like, I don't want to sound weird about that, but like, we've never seen Gerald Swindle win an Elite Series event. We've seen rookies win them 2 in a season already with Joey. We've seen guys like Bill Lowen go a long time without a win. They win one, and then it changes their game. Do you feel like Brock is still the same Brock and you want to approach every event that way going forward?
Yeah. And, I got home and, after everything settled, we were looking at my trophy and I told my wife, I was like, I really don't feel like this is my last one. And I was like, I don't mean it arrogant. It's just that one thing, the 5-second places taught me, even though I would just say, after every second, everybody'd be like, well, how you feel? I was like, well, I got to look at guys like Swindle, like you said, that he's never won a blue trophy, but he's got 2 brown ones. So I always said, after each second place finish, it got more and more confidence, I guess you could say, that, hey, as long as I keep putting myself in that position, I'll eventually win one. And now I've put myself in position to win one, 6 or 7 times now. And, if I can just keep doing that, it seems like every year now I get at least 1 second.
Yeah.
So
that's what we were talking about that.
We can just do that. I think, I'll be able to give me another 1 or 2.
That's the one thing I talked to Brian Schmidt about this. He's not as usually a consistent guy for the Angler of the Year race. He's always got some bombs, but then he's got more chances to win than most guys do, and he normally closes the deal. And I said, what's going on with you this year, Brian? You're actually fishing really well. You're in the top 10 in points, and you have a shot to win St. Clair. And he's like, dude, sometimes you just get on a roll. And so we've seen Brock Mosley get on a roll, and I expect you to do the same thing. We're going to Champlain places that's really fun to fish up next. And then the St. Lawrence River, where you also have a second place finish in a different kind of scenario and deal. You've had success there with largemouth. You've had success with smallmouth, but Brock, I look forward to seeing you go forward in the next couple events as well. You've been a great Elite Series champion so far. I think that have you had a lot of fans reach out to you online? I know the Orange fans there in person were obviously super supportive, but have you had people reach out online and just say that you're very relatable, it seems, to a lot of our fans? You work hard, you're very humble, you're grateful for the opportunity, and then you're not afraid to show your enthusiasm when you do catch a 5-pounder on day 3 at the Sabine.
Yeah, I had hundreds of messages, and I'm the kind of, like, I can still remember being a fan like it was yesterday. So I try to be that guy that gets back to everybody and at least say thank you. I appreciate the support. So it was overwhelming. Like I said, it was like a solid week after that of being on the phone every day, all day. One day I actually took a break, turned my phone off, and went cut grass in the heat for 2 hours just to kind of take a break from it. But it was real fun, and I'll just look forward to maybe doing it again one day.
I have no doubts about it. Brock, appreciate you joining us for part of our Winning Ways section. You talked about your area, Taylor's, and close to the ramp, a couple of the key baits as well. Congratulations. Normally we'll look at some people and be like, man, he won one earlier than we thought. But that's not the case with you. We saw this one coming from a long ways away. So congratulations, Brock. Elite Series champion. We'll just give you a round of applause one more time. Brock Mosley, 2023 at the Sabine River.
Appreciate it, Ronnie.
Of course. Brock Mosley, Bassmaster Elite Series champion. We can call him that now, and I'm excited to be able to talk to him today on the podcast. Brock is a champion through and through. His work ethic. I've been able to share opportunities with Brock when it was the lean years, when it was tough years. He was early in his Elite Series career, frustration, sponsorship things, and to see Brock grow in front of our eyes as an angler on the biggest stage on Bassmaster Live and the Elite Series is super cool. So Brock Mosley, your champion in the 6th stop of the season at the Sabine River. And that concludes our Winning Ways episode for today. I hate that my guy Kyle Jesse couldn't join us today on the podcast, but I know that he is getting much needed time off. We look forward to joining with him in the next episode of the podcast. I think coming up, we're going to have the Opens Winning Ways very soon, and we will have the college championships right around the corner, the brackets down the road, obviously the last few Elite Series events of the season. Once those wrap up, we'll have the Opens concluding on Bassmaster Live. We'll have the final day of the final 3 EQ Opens events on FS1. So a lot on the docket in August, September, and October for Bassmaster. And we look forward to covering it all, not only on live and on the website, but on the Inside Bassmaster podcast. So we will see you next time.